The Buffalo Bills wrapped up their seventh training camp practice on Thursday. And if you've been waiting for Kaiir Elam to make his mark on this cornerback 2 competition, you got your wish as he was the star of the show. I am Josh McCarty, and we're going to get into it all right now. Bills 2022 first-round pick Kaiir Elam was all over the field on Thursday, flashing both in one-on-ones and in team drills, and he wrapped it all up with a pick six on Josh Allen. Kaiir Elam was having the most first teams reps we have seen him have all through training camp, and he's come out with a swagger, he's come out with an attitude, he's come out with confidence, and I think it's safe to say that he has closed the gap on Dane Jackson. There's still a long way to go. One other thing that's interesting, though, when you look at who's been getting the lion's share of the first team reps, it feels like maybe it is now a two-horse race. We are not hearing as much about Christian Benford being in there with the ones. Ian Rappaport was at Bills camp today, and he did mention that Benford is a guy that the Bills are very high on, which is interesting. Maybe they're going to give Benford some more run at the scrimmage on Friday night. But as of right now, it's starting to feel like CB2 will either be Dane Jackson or Kaiir Elam or both. I still think having a committee situation at CB2 is very, very much in the cards. A switch happened at running back today. Damian Harris saw a lot of first team reps, and I don't think that should send off any alarm bells regarding James Cook. The reality of the Bills running back situation is that historically under Sean McDermott, since Shady McCoy left after the 2017 season, no Bills running back has gotten more than 188 carries in any single season. I think this was always going to be a situation where James Cook and Damian Harris were going to be involved with the first team offense. But one thing to keep in mind, when Devin Singletary left this offseason, one thing he left behind was 82 pass blocking snaps. And right now, the Bills between Damian Harris and James Cook have two players that both had less than 23 pass blocking snaps last season. James Cook only had 13. Figuring out which running back the Bills can trust in those third down passing situations to protect Josh Allen is going to be very key. If that winds up being Damian Harris, that could very much eat into this volume that a lot of us are projecting for James Cook going forward. So that's certainly something we want to monitor. The refs were at practice on Thursday, and that's something that a lot of teams do. They get refs in-house. It's good for the players to get used to the refs calling penalties. Kaiir Elam had a holding call called on him. It also works out well for the refs because they get live reps at an NFL practice. I mentioned Kaiir Elam played well, but don't let that overshadow the fact that Dane Jackson maybe had his strongest day yet too. He had an interception of Josh Allen late in a team period. He was strong in coverage all day. It seems like Tre'Davious White's been taking a lot of snaps off. We've seen that also with Micah Hyde and Jordan Poyer. So there's been a lot of reps to go around for Dane Jackson and Kaiir Elam. Dane Jackson is still very much in this race, maybe the favorite to win the CB2 job, and he too had a strong day on Thursday. I think we got some clarity on middle linebacker. It's been a three-person rotation up until 2 days ago when it was Balen Spector's turn and Tyrell Dodson took the field. Today, Sean McDermott said at his press conference that the Bills are wanting to take longer looks at Tyrell Dodson and Terrell Bernard. That tells me it's a two-person race, and we saw Terrell Bernard get the number one reps today at middle linebacker. It sure feels like we have seen the end of Balen Spector in this middle linebacker competition. Now, this can change if they get out to the scrimmage tomorrow and Balen Spector is at the first middle linebacker position, but if he's not, I think it's safe to assume that now we're down to two, Terrell Bernard and Tyrell Dodson. I think Tyrell Dodson is the favorite for that job. I like him better as a player than Terrell Bernard. And so at this point, if it's not going to be Balen Spector, we know it's not going to be Dorian Williams. Sure as heck doesn't seem like it's going to be A.J. Klein. I think the Bills, their best case scenario is to just roll with the veteran Tyrell Dodson. One story that's been gaining a lot of traction at camp is just how solid Gabe Davis has been. And I know that can be kind of an eye roll because we all heard the hype last year of how good Gabe Davis was and all the hype after the 4 touchdowns against Kansas City. But Gabe Davis has been consistently stacking good days at camp, even when the rest of the offense has days that they struggle. Gabe Davis was the only offensive player that had a strong day on Tuesday when the rest of the offense couldn't get out of their own way. And what Gabe Davis is doing out there at camp is not just attacking the deep ball, but he's attacking the intermediate routes, presenting himself as a reliable weapon for Josh Allen. And obviously, if that can carry over into the regular season, that is a huge development for this offense that needs somebody to step up opposite Stephon Diggs. They're hoping they're going to get that with Dalton Kincaid. And my goodness, if they get that with Gabe Davis, this offense is going to be a lot of fun. One wide receiver who probably won't be on the field very much this season, but did have a good day on Thursday is Andy Isabella. In red zone work, he made a couple of contested catches. It feels like he's starting to get his footing as a player offensively. Up until today, he was working a lot more in kick return and punt return. I think Andy Isabella's path to making this team is still very, very challenging. His best bet is to wow them in the kick return or punt return game and really stand out as the front runner for that job. That does not appear to be the case right now, because I think the Bills are only going to keep 6 wide receivers. 5 guys are absolute locks with Stephon Diggs, Gabe Davis, Khalil Shakir, Deontay Hardy, and Trent Sherfield. And it sure feels like Justin Shorter is going to make this roster too, with the 5th round pick they invested in him and the weapon they think he can be on special teams from day one. So the path for Andy Isabella, I think realistically, is that veteran practice squad presence who's just there when they lose a player to an injury, maybe the old Tanner Gentry role or what John Brown was last year. Keep him in-house. I think Andy Isabella is on his way to being a priority practice squad player for the Bills. Offensive guard, more of the same today. Osiris Torrance and Ryan Bates continue to rotate. Still no clarity there. The blue and red scrimmages tomorrow, maybe we'll get a better idea there. It's still very much a two-man race between Bates and Torrance. We did see David Edwards again rotate in at left guard for Connor McGovern. Still nothing to really consider there. Connor McGovern is clearly their left guard, but McGovern also took a few snaps at center today, giving Mitch Morse some spells. So I think they're just trying to see the flexibility McGovern has. Bates has been doing the majority of the backup center work this training camp, but McGovern's the guy that also has that flexibility to do that. Second day in a row, Cam Lewis has really flashed. He's put together a really good training camp, guys. I know I said this even yesterday. Cam Lewis is a guy that can be an eye roll among Bills fans because we remember the Justin Jefferson catch. We remember him running into the punter against Miami and almost turning that game into a loss in December. But Cam Lewis is a very valuable player. And one more time, a guy that is your best backup nickel cornerback, a guy that can back up at boundary cornerback if you need him to get you out of a game there. He can back up at safety, and he is a 4-phase special teams player. Cam Lewis, when Taron Johnson needs a spell, comes in and plays with the first team defense. I think we all need to get our minds to the point where we're accepting the fact that Cam Lewis is going to be on this 53-man roster. He's a good football player. He's a valuable football player, and I think he's going to be a 2023 Buffalo Bill. The Bills had their first starter go down with an apparent injury on Thursday as right tackle Spencer Brown looks to suffer a back injury. Joe Marino from Locked On Bills tweeted this out. I'll just read it word for word. At the end of practice, Bills offensive tackle Spencer Brown left the field walking with obvious stiffness and accompanied by several trainers. He looked extremely uncomfortable and could not bend over to pick up his helmet. He has a history of back problems. Now, Alex Brasky tagged onto that tweet, said he just saw Spencer Brown speeding past on his electric bicycle en route to the dining hall. Maybe that's a sign that it's much ado about nothing, but you know the situation with Spencer Brown. One, he's been an inconsistent football player. A lot of people thought the Bills should have been more aggressive in finding competition for right tackle this offseason. They didn't. They brought in Brandon Shell on virtually a minimum deal from Miami, and he was not great last year, especially in pass protection. They brought back David Quessenberry on a 1-year deal. I think if Spencer Brown's going to be out long-term, Brandon Shell would be that guy that would fill in for him. I would not anticipate that to be Tommy Doyle. Tommy Doyle is having a very disappointing camp. Sounds like he's really struggling to come back from that ACL injury last year. And I do think that if Spencer Brown were to miss significant time, one thing the Bills could do, which they have not done yet in training camp, is they could toy with the idea of moving Ryan Bates to right tackle. Get your best 5 offensive linemen out there, Torrance at right guard, Bates at right tackle. That's something they could do. Maybe it's not ideal because Bates has not been practicing there, but he came into the league as a tackle. He has the body and the skill set to adapt to that if they think it's necessary. The Bills have the blue and red scrimmage back at Orchard Park tomorrow at Highmark Stadium. That will be fun. Luca and I will be live for Bills Chat Live a half an hour after the blue and red scrimmage ends, and we'll be breaking down everything that took place at Highmark Stadium, updating the positional battles, letting you know about all the big plays. I would assume Dalton Kincaid's going to get in the end zone a couple times. Hopefully the fans that go out there have a great time. I look forward to talking to you then. If you could, while you're here, I would love it if you hit that like and subscribe button down there. It helps us out so much as we are trying to make Bills Chat your one-stop shop for all Buffalo Bills content. I am Josh McCarty. I will talk to you next time on Quick Chat.